Before we start today's show, I would just like to state that I have fulfilled my obligation to this piece of scum right here. Actually, that's incredibly false, because I'm going to enjoy the heck out of making this series. And please go subscribe to TheGammaTrap. That is all. Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and today is going to be a trip down memory lane for me. I'm sure if you've been around the internet, then you know about this little game coming up in a few days here called Doom Eternal? I don't know, I heard about it the other day and people are losing their minds over it. Of course, I'm kidding! I've been looking forward to this title for I don't know how long at this point. I mean, with how often it's been pushed back, it feels like an eternity. Bad pun, moving on. Some of you out there might be asking what the absolute big deal is with this game. I mean, people on YouTube that don't usually cover games are looking into doing a few pieces on it, even if it completely derails their typical content track. Two I know of and frequent would be Jeremy Johns and Maximilian Dude, where Jeremy covers movies and such, while Max covers fighting games and Final Fantasy VII, but mostly fighting games. And while these two are incredibly more successful than I am, it's incredible to see how any title in gaming, movies, books, card games, whatever the pop culture or reference may be, a symbol that bridges all of these gaps. That's pretty incredible to me. And it's just one reason why Doom Eternal is such a big deal. It goes beyond the usual nostalgia for some. Doom has had a cult following for years, and I'm not talking about the one that Olivia Pierce has in the Lazarus Pits either. There are communities outside of the Steam forums that have been set up for Doom even in the off years. It's general proof that you can enjoy a title in series far past its fair weather years and continue to not only talk about it and share different strategies or otherwise, but to invest time into growing with the title. In a lot of ways, bettering yourself in a video game, which sounds dumb to some, but do I have to look at esports to call out how that's actually a bigger deal than you might think? Oh well, I know some will get it, others just won't. Like me with sports on TV. I just don't understand it, man. Now for a little history talk, which I tend to think makes you appreciate things a little bit more. It's tough to really lock down which game started the whole first-person shooter thing. Doom wasn't it. Doom, I would argue, popularized it and made it into something more about fantasy and ridiculous, over-the-top weapons and action, sure. But Wolfenstein 3D came out a year before Doom in 1992. Even then, there are other titles that could be credited for the start of the first-person titles that we have today, especially with Midi Maze from 1987. Granted, it was a little juvenile in nature. But hey, we don't talk about that when this is the starts of video games as we know them today, right? Fun fact, Midi Maze came back as Faceball 2000 on SNES and Game Boy later on. Fun dumb trivia, always fan of that. Wolfenstein marked one of the first times we would push the PC past its limits, as it was in the early 90s. I mean, this was the age of the PC 386. And this picture, I didn't put Wolfenstein on there with Photoshop, that came that way. That should give you a general idea how important the game was for the time. Heck, its prequel Spear of Destiny was released in 1992 as well, and though it reused the same assets and voice packs, it just supplied fans with the same general feel of Wolfenstein all over again. So then why are people feeling the way that they do about Doom if Wolfenstein is the grandfather of FPS games? What's the big deal when we just spent 4 minutes talking about Wolfenstein in a video that's all about Doom? Well, if there was ever an issue I had with Wolfenstein, it simply felt like Breach and Clear Door Simulator. I didn't mind it at all, and it was still a great game for the time. There is nothing and no one that can take that from Wolfenstein 3D and any of its other makes in the least. It had the more realistic avenue for games down, and it capitalized on that market maliciously. In a lot of rights, Wolfenstein is what could be Battlefield or Rainbow Six today. Anything with a more realistic and somewhat methodical feel to it compared to other titles is more the point I'm trying to make here. Then you look at Doom, and it changes the entire landscape. Doom is the grandfather of fantasy shooter games. In a lot of ways, it's one reason I really do love Destiny's gameplay, or BioShock's power controls and movement, or Halo and how that evolved the landscape all on its own. In many ways, Doom started the non-realistic shooter genre. Released in 1993 by id Software, it quickly became the best-selling PC game and held that record for quite some time. Even after it fell off the general charts, it was still heralded over and over through the years as being one of the best games on PC of all time, and is it any wonder? Wolfenstein had the door shooting down to a science, but that was the issue. There was no movement within the combat that existed. It was taken a bit more seriously and realistic, as I've said several times now. Doom opened the door, literally. Instead of these tiny things, now you have these huge hatches. And once you open them up, oh, sometimes hell hath no fury. Actually, that's not true. Hell hath all the fury. Doom also had network connective play to fight against each other and the AI, which caused for way too many late nights on network play. I mean, LAN parties, anyone? That's literally how online play got started, was because of nerds and LAN parties. I'm just stating a fact here. This was one of the most interesting pieces of Doom that opened it up to a new way to play shooters in an already budding market. Network PCs together to take on objectives and each other? Where have I heard that one before? If Wolfenstein was about Indiana Jones and the good parts from Raiders of the Lost Ark, then Doom is about Alien 2 and all the colonial marine shootouts that took place in that film. I mean, that was a very real inspiration for the creators of Doom, after all. But the thing about Doom, it got its stride and kept it for quite some time on the same general engine that id Software developed. id was responsible for some of the most well-known shooters as I was growing up. Quake, Wolfenstein, and Doom were the big three, of course. Quake took over for quite a bit of it. I mean, tournaments and so on were held because it took some of the basics that Doom had for its networked play and moved them into a completely different title. It really just expanded on them more. An arena shooter, it was all about who just didn't have the right reflexes to move one way or the other at the end of the day. Quake games were weird. That's all that I have on that angle. After the release of Doom 64, which was published by Midway at the time, which is also kind of weird, Doom went kind of quiet. Doom 3 pretty much put a cork in it as well, as it might have been a good game, but it wasn't Doom. And that was hard to deny after playing it for myself. It's almost like Wolfenstein and Doom had a kid, and that's what Doom 3 was for me. It was tough to get into and invest time in the title like I did in previous games. It felt like it wasn't innovating anymore. It felt like it was just following a trend. No, there was something captivating about playing Doom. The original became a title I tried to learn enough to speedrun, and it gave me appreciation that learning maps, learning enemy spawns, knowing where things were to plant specific rounds of fire on, all of these elements went into learning how speedruns would develop for me with time. And it gives me a very big and different appreciation for the guys that do any kind of speedruns, period. Or really any kind of no damage runs that are out there too, because they're just as insane. Granted, you see, I really do a lot of nothing with that anymore, and trust me, I am rusty. I can barely recall most of what's going on with older Doom titles anymore, thanks to how my memory's going. It hasn't cut down my appreciation and love for the titles all the same, however. The weapon designs for the time, along with the animations for targets, were way ahead of their time, especially for how they would move, fire, fall over, anything. There was obvious care and attention put into the series by the team involved at id, and it's something that I'm hard-pressed to feel the same care and attention to detail in other titles today. Granted, that's a nuanced conversation that I know I'm wrapping into a couple-sentence idea here, but hey, you can reflect on that on your own. But for some, Doom might be limited in scope for you to just the newest title. Perhaps 2016 was the first time you looked into the franchise and saw it for what it was to a lot of us over the years. Perhaps not. If it is, hey, welcome to the crew. Welcome to a multi-generational franchise that has something in it for everyone, that tells a tale just enough to make you think. That is some of the most satisfying powers and equipment that video games have to offer, from a studio that's been at this longer than some of you have been alive. For me, that's exciting to think about, that I can share that experience at my age with those of you in the generation of gamers that's to come. But that's just another reason why people are looking forward to Doom Eternal so much. Channels on YouTube that are looking to share it with their audiences that don't usually look into that. Think about that for just a second. It's certainly about the next blood-soaked title that id Software has cooking up for us, and the powers, weapons, and movement and traversal, and the Doomslayer himself. But quite frankly, it's about us coming together to just enjoy something again that makes me most excited for this title. As someone that's looking to dig back into this franchise some more with a stupid smile on my face, remembering some good times from when I was younger, I can honestly say that's what makes me most excited for Doom Eternal. And I cannot wait to share that with all of you as well. Over the next several episodes, if not longer, we'll be talking about this franchise in so much as I'm able to. Doom leaves a lot to the imagination, and it wasn't fully set out to the player to piece together some grand story. In a lot of ways, Doom has a very simple story, but that's by design. The idea is to get in, play the game, get out. It's always been that way with these games. Story pieces are left to a screen's worth of text between major sections of each game, or, in the case of the original, between chapters. If you'd like to catch up on the mild history of the games, then check out the old user manuals for the games. They're up online, they're free of charge to find, and they're kind of funny to read through, actually. That's where a lot of original story points existed, and where theories begin. Doom 2016 opened up the gates of hell for us in terms of lore and story, however, and I cannot wait to start digging into that with all of you. But for now, I just wanted to get this piece out there and share my appreciation and love for another franchise, like I had with Monster Hunter back in the day. This time, though, I think we'll keep to our... well, I can't say that word or YouTube's gonna demonetize me to hell and back like the Slayer, but, you know, we'll keep on track with the story and lore, where I took a different take altogether with Monster Hunter before. But the point is to simply have fun, whatever that might mean. Anyway, I have rambled on enough about this. I hope this connected with some of you and got you interested in what's to come with Doom, or at least gave you an idea on why people are so excited about it. I'm not a hype man, and I'm not trying to steer you into playing the game, buying it, or otherwise, but just to give you a better understanding on why people are excited for Eternal Damnation. Oh, wait, no, that's not right. If you'd like to be part of future discussions, then you know the big red button to press, along with letting me know what you thought of this piece with a like or dislike. Anything can help out here on the channel, and I'm interested to hear any input you may have. But regardless, no matter what you choose to do, to all of you, no matter when or where you are, I'll see you next space time to rip and tear. Take care.